Welcome back to Making Sales Social. I'm really excited to share our new guest, Laura Patterson, who brings a wealth of experience and deep passion for customer centricity to her role as president at VisionEdge Marketing. From her early days selling chocolates door to door, where she first understood the power of compelling value proposition, to her extensive career developing and implementing growth strategies for various companies, Laura's approach has been consistently centered around the customer. Her expertise is augmented by her achievements as best-selling author, international speaker, and recognized leader in marketing operations. Laura, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brynne. Very excited to be here.
Oh, I'm thrilled to have you today. I absolutely love customer centricity, and I can't wait to dive into your expertise around that. But before we do, we ask all of our guests one question, which is, what does making sales social mean to you?
Okay, I think that's a great question. And of course, in today's very social media oriented world, a lot of people think that it means putting your stuff out there on all these various social media platforms. But selling is a very human interaction. At least I think so. Hence, selling chocolates door to door or lemonade from a lemonade stand or whatever it might be. And so it's really about the human interaction to me. That's how I interpret it. And I think that to be successful in life, whether that's in business, which I know we're going to talk mostly about, but it doesn't matter whether it's in whatever it is, it's about relationships, and you need to be able to engage with one another in a human way. So that's my answer to that question. What do you think?
Oh, well, thank you for asking. I actually completely agree that making sales social is leveraging relationships, rapport building, bringing value, and ultimately helping people succeed and from the social side of things. And while I am a true believer in AI and technology, I do not believe that any technology can ever replace the human connection. So I love that. And thank you for asking. You may be the only one that's ever asked me that.
I guess it must have something to do with our social nature.
Maybe, absolutely. Well, as I mentioned, you are very customer centric in your approach, and you've been an advocate for customer centricity throughout your entire career. Can you talk a little bit of why it's so vitally important, not just generally, but why today it's even more important than ever before?
Okay, stop me anytime. Take the cane
No,
out
you keep
anytime.
going. I
But
want all your brilliance.
I'm gonna wind the clock back just a little bit,
Okay.
and to Peter Drucker,
Ah,
way back. Okay, so I'm taking the clock back to Peter Drucker, who said that the purpose of business is to create a customer, right? That's the purpose of business. That's why we're in business, and we can't ever forget that's who we serve. And the biggest balancing act challenge that every business faces is, how do you keep the equilibrium between creating customer value and business value? And so customer centricity, and in a moment, if we have time, I'll kind of give you how it's different from other ways of running your business, because there are other ways to run your business. And I've been in those places. I bet you have too. And probably some of our listeners of this podcast have been in some of those other business models as well. But customer centricity is pretty simple. It's about keeping the customer in mind in every decision that you make for your business. It's pretty simple, right? So, and it's easy to forget the customer when you're especially in volatile times, under stress. In anything can stress anybody in a business, any organization, right? People can be stressed by the economy. They can be stressed by talent challenges, supply chain challenges, regulations. All kinds of things can affect our behavior.
mhm.
Family challenges. I'm about to move my 87-year-old mother from Phoenix to Austin. Trust me, it's creating stress. So, we all face stress, and it affects how we interact with others. And so by being customer centric, it means that we have the customer in mind in every decision that we're going to make. And so that is, I think, a good way to think about it.
I think that's really powerful. And, one of our sayings is detach from what the prospect is worth to you and attach to what you are worth to the prospect.
Yes.
And I think that's ultimately what you're saying, right? Like, this is about solving their problem. This isn't about you and selling your stuff, but if your stuff is the right solution, it will sell.
But and so great that you're bringing that up because you've alluded to a couple of other kinds of ways to run a company or an organization, right? So there's product-centric organizations, and you know those companies because they are, if we build it, they will come. And think about it, it can work because look what's going on with generative AI. They built it and all these people came. We're all enthralled, right?
Right.
So you can be product-centric for a while, but in the end, if you are not careful, and we can talk about some examples of companies who built things and people came, but if you lose the nature of why the problem you're solving, the pain that you're addressing, or the aspiration you're enabling, if you lose sight of that, eventually you will face consequences. And then to your other point, which you are such a great straight person, Brynne, is the idea that we can just sell, right? We can just sell it, right? And this is a very sales-centric organization. And we know those people because salespeople are running the show and it's all about making a number, right? And one day you're the hero when you're making a number. And if you're not making the number, you're feeling the pressure, right? That's a sales-centric organization. So there are other organizations out there and they're not customer-centric in that, and those are examples of companies. And I bet people can think about places they've worked and see those reflected in some of the places they've been.
It's interesting because, and I'm going to go, you brought yourself back with Peter Drucker. I'm going to bring myself back with Blockbuster.
Oh,
And
great
right?
example.
Yeah. So Blockbuster initially they were product centric, but they were very customer centric. They put a Blockbuster in every single town and made it very easy for us to get there and made it really easy for us to rent movies. But they did not keep up with what their clients needed. They were very focused on the product. They stopped focusing on the people. They ended up going out of business, and now
They're a
Netflix is
great
there.
example. And we can see what happens with a company like Netflix, which was, an ankle biter. And but what Netflix has turned into, and we've seen Netflix pivot, right? They went from where you had something come in the mail to a streaming company. They went from other people's content to their own content. So they've learned how to pivot. And I think that is, again, a reflection of paying attention to what customers want. And it's also a kissing cousin, which is market centric, right? Which is basically market centric companies are paying attention to things that are occurring in the market, major trends. The difference between a market centric and a product centric company is market centric companies are catching a wave, right?
Mhm.
So the wave is already sort of there, and then they're kind of grabbing onto that and allowing it to pull them through. So we're seeing that now in your world with all the things you're doing around AI. Look at how many things have mushroomed up as a result of generative AI, Chat GPT's birth, which, I mean, we're only on the verge of its second year, right? It's an infant, right? It's crazy. But look at what it's all around us. And I was mentioning to you, I'm playing around with this platform, which is a brand new product that came out of, I'll put in quotations, the garage of people in Germany. And it's a generative AI platform. So, they're mushrooming up everywhere, right?
Yeah, and we're actually launching one in a few weeks. So there you go. So
Yeah.
yeah, and that's the other thing is it's very accessible and very easy to use. OpenAI ultimately anyone can build on it, which is pretty cool. So they're product centric, but I think they have to be people centric as well. Otherwise, things like the other LLMs, LLMs, I keep doing that, large language models can take over, right? So like ChatGPT is the mammoth in the room, but Gemini for Google is pretty darn good, and Copilot which is Microsoft, is getting there, right? So they have to continue to think in what you're calling the customer centricity mindset in order to stay the mammoth in the room, I think.
Yes. So back as an example, I'm playing around with this one application, then we'll move on to a whole different topic. Of course, can hardly go through a day without talking about AI, so we are no exception here. But they've already sent information, this company that built Cintra.ai, about features or capabilities that they would love to have. Are you interested in having this? Would you be interested in having that? A little survey. And I just want to see them create the helpers they already have in their platform be able to do more, right? Do more on my behalf, not give me more stuff. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So,
Brilliant.
yes.
So I love that. So I'm going to kind of move to the challenge that you've seen your clients face when encountering kind of adopting the customer-centric approach. So moving maybe from product-centric or from a different sales approach to that customer-centric mentality. What are some of the challenges companies that you've worked with face, and how have you helped them kind of get over that?
That is a great question. And I think it starts with asking the question about, what do you need to know about your customer to be able to make better decisions? So I think there's a stat out there, Brynne, and don't quote me, but it's something like that most people make about 3,500 decisions in a day. All right. That's all decisions, from like, what are we going to have for breakfast? And for me, I have a Keurig machine. Which flavor coffee am I going to put in my Keurig? Oh, you too? Okay, coffee's a food group for me. All right. So from something as small as that, right, to very, very big decisions, like things that I'm doing for my mom or the things I'm doing for my customers, right? So that whole gamut, 3,500 decisions in a day. So some of those decisions are made, they're routine. They're just part of our life. We're used to doing them. They come very, what do they call that? Unconscious competence, right? Something
Right.
like that. The real critical thing in running a company is to have clarity around your customers. And that is, first question is, who is your customer, right? And a lot of people will, if you're opportunistic and you're willing to have anybody be your customer, you'll take money from anyone for anything. You'll say, yes, I can do that for anything. You're probably not customer centric. You're sales centric, right?
Right.
A good way to think about it. Well, I take money from anyone for anything. Even if I don't offer it today, I'll say yes because I feel I can do that. That's a totally sales-centric way of running your business, right? So first question is really, who are my customers? And I was just telling someone recently, they asked me a question about, what was the worst business decision you ever made? And the answer to that question was, I spent a lot of time, energy, and money getting on the government schedule, right? Because I wanted to expand my customer base, and I thought that that would be a possibility, but it took my energy away from where I had built a business. So it was a distraction in the end, not necessarily an expansion, but a distraction. And so again, who really is your customer? So that's the first question I always ask people. What is the problem that you're solving for them, or the aspiration you're enabling for them? And if you don't know the answer to that, you kind of need to step back, right? Because when I talk to people, they'll say, I'm an XYZ company and I sell, or I have X, ABC. Okay, well, why do people need that? Who wants it? What is the problem that you're solving, right? You should, if you don't know the answers to those questions, off the top of your head, probably need to do some thinking. And then the next question becomes, where else can they get it? How else can they solve it? Why would they choose you to solve it, right? So those are kinds of questions you need to know the answers to if you're going to be customer centric.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. So if they're making that shift, do they have to shift all of their content, their website verbiage, their email campaigns? If you're going to move from we're selling something to we're helping people, is it a huge lift? Like when people come to you and say, all right, our selling something just isn't working anymore. We know we have to go customer centric. How big of a lift is this?
That is a great question. And so, I spent a long time, about a dozen years, competing in triathlons. Okay. And you don't go out on day one and say, I'm going to compete in a triathlon and I'm going to win my race. It just doesn't work like that. I mean, some people are natural athletes. They're really good. Maybe they were athletes and they were runners or swimmers or bikers in a previous part of their life, and they've really got a great base for that. But the everyday person, and that's kind of true of a company. So the first thing I always ask people to do is, where can you have your first wins in being customer centric, right? A lot of people want to look at the worst area, and there are some bad areas that you want to shore up. But the first place is, where can you have your first wins? Start there. And then the second question is, what is your Achilles heel at being customer centric? Because we need to fix that. So back to triathlons, did not learn to swim until I was an adult. All right. I just didn't have the opportunity to swim. I had never really ridden a bike, but I knew how to run. First of all, I had a very dear friend in high school who was a cross-country runner, and I would run with her for training in the summer. And then I was an Army ROTC for 2 years, and you run everywhere. Okay, so I knew how to run. You think most people know how to run, but there's a difference in really being a proficient runner,
Yeah.
right?
I have track boys. So yeah.
Yes. Okay, great. So you can relate to that. It's not like you just run and all of a sudden you're a magnificent runner. So but that was a base for me. But as I thought about competing in triathlons, I needed to think about where I could have my first wins and what did I need to shore up that would allow me to make a headway. Well, a lot of people think, oh, we just need to become a much better swimmer or a much better biker. That wasn't what I shored up first. What I shored up first was my transition times, because it was an operational area that would allow me to reduce my time. And it didn't require me to be a better swimmer or a better runner or a better biker. It was operational. And I find that is often true inside companies, that once they figure out where they can get a good win, for me, it was running, because I'd already done 5Ks and 10Ks and things like that. But then operationally, where is the opportunity? And I think for many companies, that's the next place for them to look.
That's brilliant. And then the biggest gap or Achilles heel, I think, is brilliant, right? So your biggest win and then your biggest pain point or gap.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think
For
that
me, my first race, I mean, a huge amount of my time was just in transition. It's a whole funny story. I'll tell you sometime offline, a whole funny story. But my husband's basic comment was, you don't have to be better at anything. You just need to get this X amount of time down to this X amount of time. And that's just really about an efficiency.
oh, I
Anybody can
love,
do that.
yeah, that's so brilliant. So, what are some practical steps that companies can take? So you talked about identifying kind of your biggest win, but what are some things they can do internally to figure that out? Or what are some questions that you ask your clients where they go, oh, that could be my biggest win? Because sometimes that's the hardest thing. Like, okay, we're going, oh my God, absolute Laura, this is brilliant. Where do I start?
Okay, so we have to start with data, right? So I'll start asking questions. Like, one question I'll ask oftentimes is, how many customers do you have? So here's the thing. A lot of companies can tell me what their revenue numbers are, but they can't always tell me how many customers contribute to that revenue. Nor can they tell me, for example, how they organize or think about those customers. So here's a good example. One of our customers has a couple hundred customers that make up their revenue, which is in the millions, right? So a couple hundred customers make up multi-millions of dollars. And then I asked them, what percentage of those customers are your biggest customers, and how much of that revenue do they contribute? They had to really think about that. Finally, they settled on something like 15 customers contribute 80% of our business. Okay. but they didn't know that off the top of their head. And so getting into that conversation, then my next question to them was, well, of those 15 customers, do you have all of their business or only a small part of their business? Could you have more or not more? That's a customer-centric kind of question. What's in your data, for example? And what about, so if that's 15, that means there's 185 other customers. Well, who are they? Are any of those people so do more business with? And if you looked at them, do you have a huge number of them in a particular market? Is that a market that you excel in for ABC reason? Could you do more there? What is it about that market the problem that you solve? Or is there a smaller group here that if you were paying more attention to are a bigger opportunity? See, it all comes down to really knowing who your customers are, knowing where your opportunities are, and then asking the question, what's my competitive situation? Like, I like these 10 customers over here. I'd love to do more business there, but I've got 3 primary competitors, and the only way I'm going to get more business is if I poach from those companies, and I don't have the resources to poach. Might not be a good win, right?
Really, that's like a mic drop moment, right? Because I can build a list all day long of the customers that I want, but is it practical to go after them? Are those the big wins? Maybe my Achilles heel is not knowing or understanding my data.
Well, data is a huge challenge for many customers. And so I always ask this question: what is one decision that you need to make? One business decision you need to make. What information do I need to have to make that decision? Do I have that data to make it, or do I need to go get that data to make it? So just start with one decision. What is one customer-centric decision I need to make? Because if you don't know what decision you need to make, you don't know what data to go look at. And I think that's a big challenge for a lot of companies, especially smaller companies who are overwhelmed by the amount of data that they have available to themselves, available to them today, right? And so they're overwhelmed by all of that, and they think they have to look at all of that. And I always ask the question of, what is the decision you need to make? Then we can figure out what data to look at.
Gosh, I love this so much. I want to keep going. I do want to ask one question around principles and values and mission, because I feel like customer centricity is really about a value, right? It's coming at, like, my mission is to help people, not necessarily to sell things, but selling things, right? So tell me just a little bit, like, if you were to say, like, the top 3 principles, values that a customer-centric company should bring to the table, what are 3 principles that you'd recommend?
Okay, I love this question. And you are right. There is a culture associated with customer centricity, just like there's a culture associated with sales centric or a culture associated with product centric, right? And it doesn't mean that you can't be innovative in any of those, right? So
Mhm.
you have to be able to solve people's problems. You have to want to solve people's problems or help them get to where they want to go, whatever way you want to frame that. You have to want to do that. You have to be responsive, right? You have to be responsive to people. And you can almost always tell a company that isn't responsive by some of the interesting ways they behave when you call for help, right? They have a script. They can't vary from their script. That's not a customer-centric company. This is the script, folks. So, right? I get very frustrated when I just have a very specific question and they have to go through like 20 questions before I can ask my question, of which the things that they want to know about me are absolutely irrelevant to getting an answer to a very easy question that has nothing to do with my data, my personal information, or whatever, right? So, and then I think you have to be collaborative both internally and with your customer. I think those are 3 things that are kind of very common inside companies that are customer centric. They want to help, they're responsive, right? They return phone calls, they answer their phone, they respond to email, whatever it might be, and they're collaborative in the way that they engage with people.
So what I'm hearing that I'm loving is, in order to really have a customer-centric culture, you need to empower your employees to serve those customers.
Yes. So one of the people I worked for a very long time in my corporate career had the philosophy when it came to customers, taking care of a customer, ask for forgiveness, not permission. As long as you were taking care of a customer. Now, that didn't mean all rules. That did not mean you could violate all rules and ask for forgiveness. But if it was to take care of a customer, to serve a customer, and to solve a customer's problem, solve their problem. We'll worry about how you did it later, and then what we need to fix operationally so that we don't have to have you violate rules, or what you need to learn how to do better so that you don't have to violate rules, right?
Or that we just change the rules.
That's what he said. Right. We may have to change the process.
Right. Love that. Oh,
Yeah.
You're brilliant. This was so much fun. I so enjoyed this. My last question is, what question did I not ask you that I should have?
That is a great question. And I think that one question would be around, can you measure it? Because I think every business needs to be able to measure, have customer-centric measures. So when you have a revenue number or you have a profit number, that's great. Love that. And if you have a customer sat number, that's great too. But I really encourage people to think about their customer measures. And do they have measures that reflect how they're engaging? So one very measure we talk about is, how hard or easy are you to do business with? How much effort does a customer have to invest in order to do business with you? It's a simple measure. You can start asking customers, are we easy or hard to do business with? And on a scale of 1 to 10, right? It can be very simple. We actually have a blog post on measuring customer effort, but that is an example, whether that's getting the order or signing the contract or paying the bill or scheduling an appointment, whatever it might be. So that's an example.
Really, just unbelievably great information today. And I know that you brought an enormous amount of value, and you are audience centric, because I know that everyone is like at the edge of their seat right now. So if someone's in a company that really says, you know what, we are product centric or we're sales centric, but we really want to move toward being more customer centric, how can they get a hold of you? Are you willing to talk to them? What's the best way for them?
I would love to talk with them. And we have on our website a way you can just book a meeting with me for free for 30 minutes. Happy to have a quick conversation at laurap@visionedgemarketing.com. You can email me. I'm on LinkedIn. You can send me a note. I try to be available because I am customer centric, or not, I'm sure I make my mistakes and stumble too, but my head is in the right place, and that's what's important. Get your head in
And
the
your
right place.
heart is in the right place, and I love this. Well, I am absolutely grateful that you invested your time with us, and I'm really excited to be able to showcase your knowledge out into the world. So as we close today out, to all of our listeners, when you are out and about, don't forget to make your sales social.